The warning came from a species humanity had never heard of, transmitted on frequencies Earth scientists barely understood. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the translated message on her screen, her coffee growing cold as the word sank in. The Zelani had detected an asteroid, massive, invisible to human senses, hurtling toward Earth on a collision course that would arrive in 18 hours. "This makes no sense," muttered James Chen, her colleague at the Deep Space Communications Array. "Why would an unknown alien race warn us? What do they gain?" Elena's fingers trembled as she scrolled through the technical data the Zelani had provided. The asteroid was composed of a rare dark matter hybrid that absorbed electromagnetic radiation, making it nearly impossible to detect until it was too late. Without this warning, humanity would have had perhaps 30 minutes' notice before impact. Not enough time to evacuate, barely enough time to say goodbye. "They're not asking for anything," Elena whispered, reading the message again. "No trade proposals. No territorial agreements. Just hear the information you need to save yourselves." The next 12 hours became a frenzied symphony of human cooperation. Every space agency, every government, every private company with rocket capability united under a single purpose. The plan was desperate. Launch every nuclear warhead Earth possessed at precise coordinates as Zelani had calculated, fragmenting the asteroid just enough to turn an extinction event into a manageable meteor shower. Elena found herself in mission control, surrounded by screens showing launches from Kazakhstan, Florida, French Guiana, India, China. Missiles streaked through space carrying humanity's hopes, following trajectories mapped by alien minds who asked for nothing in return. "Elena," James grabbed her arm, pointing at another message from the Zelani. "You need to see this." The new transmission was briefer, sadder. The Zelani explained they had detected Earth's asteroid 3 days ago while conducting their final deep space surveys. Their home star was going supernova in approximately 72 hours. Their evacuation ships could only carry a fraction of their population to other systems. They were sending this warning because they believed no species should face extinction without a chance to fight. "They are dying," Elena breathed. "They used their last days to save us." On the screens, the nuclear detonations began. Brilliant flashes of light in the darkness, each one representing humanity's refusal to go quietly. The asteroid cracked, split, fragmenting into thousands of smaller pieces. Most would burn up in Earth's atmosphere. The largest chunks would impact in remote ocean areas, causing tsunamis but not global devastation. Cheers erupted throughout mission control. Humanity had been saved by strangers who expected nothing, wanted nothing, and would be dead before the week ended. But Elena wasn't cheering. She was reading the Zelani's final message, sent as their nuclear barrage succeeded. It contained star charts, population estimates, and a simple statement. "We are glad you will survive. We wish we could have done more." "James," she said, her voice cutting through the celebration, "get me Director Harrison. Now." Within hours, Elena stood before an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council, broadcast to every world leader simultaneously. She held up a datapad containing everything the Zelani had shared, their location, their situation, their technology. "They saved 8 billion human lives," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was proposing. "They have 4 to 7 hours before their star explodes. Their population is approximately 2 billion. They can evacuate maybe 10%. The Chinese representative shook his head. "Dr. Vasquez, we appreciate the sentiment, but what are you suggesting? Our faster ships would take decades to reach them." "Then we build faster ships," Elena replied. "They gave us their technology data, everything they know about faster-than-light travel, exotic matter manipulation, space-time compression. They handed us centuries of scientific advancement. In 4 to 7 hours." The Russian delegate laughed bitterly. "Impossible." Elena had expected this reaction. She had prepared for it. The Zelani didn't think it was possible to fragment that asteroid either. "But we did it because we had to, because the alternative was unacceptable." She touched her tablet, and holographic displays filled the assembly hall. Every major corporation has volunteered their resources. SpaceX, Blue Origin, Roscosmos, CNSA, ESA, they're already retooling their facilities. The International Space Station has been converted to a research lab. We have the brightest minds in physics, engineering, and exotic matter theory working on this. Working on what exactly? The Secretary General leaned forward. Building humanity's first faster-than-light rescue fleet, Elena said. The Zelani technology requires exotic matter we've never manufactured, energy sources we've barely theorized, and engineering precision we've never achieved. But we have something they didn't account for. Which is? Elena smiled, thinking of the celebrations still happening around the world, of the spontaneous memorials being built for the Zelani, of the children already learning their names in school. We have gratitude, and humanity has never been able to let a debt go unpaid. The vote was unanimous. Every nation, every space agency, every corporation would contribute everything they had, not because it was profitable, not because it was strategic, but because a dying species had spent their last days saving strangers. As the assembly dispersed into organized chaos, Elena looked up at the stars visible through the building's glass ceiling. Somewhere out there, the Zelani were preparing to die. They had no idea that 8 billion humans had just declared their extinction unacceptable. The Houston Space Center had been transformed into something resembling organized chaos. Dr. Sarah Kim, theoretical physicist and former MIT professor, stood before a wall of equations that would have taken her graduate student years to understand. She had 18 hours to make them reality. The Zelani drive system requires exotic matter with negative energy density, she explained to the assembled team of engineers, physicists, and technicians who had been working for 26 straight hours. We're essentially trying to create a bubble of space-time that moves faster than light while keeping everything inside at normal speeds. Marcus Rodriguez, head of propulsion systems at NASA, rubbed his eyes. Sarah, we've never even detected exotic matter, let alone manufactured it. The particle accelerators needed would be already being built, Sarah interrupted, pointing to a live feed from CERN. They've shut down the Large Hadron Collider and are retrofitting it with Zelani specifications. The Japanese have done the same with Super Kumyo Kande. The Chinese are converting their synchrotron facilities. On screens around the room, similar scenes played out across the globe. The normally methodical pace of scientific research had been abandoned. Decades of safety protocols were being compressed into hours. Experimental theories were being tested with equipment that hadn't existed yesterday. We're attempting something impossible, muttered Dr. Chen Wei, the quantum mechanics specialist they've flown in from Shanghai. Even if we can create the exotic matter, the energy requirements are astronomical. We'd need the output of a small star. Sarah smiled grimly. Funny you should mention that. She brought up another display showing massive solar collection arrays being launched into orbit. Every solar panel manufacturer on Earth is working overtime. We're building a solar collection grid that will funnel energy directly to our launch platforms. The door burst open, and Director Harrison strode in with Elena Vasquez close behind. Status report, he demanded. Impossible becoming improbable, Sarah replied. We have exotic matter production starting in 6 hours. The first faster-than-light drive prototype will be ready for testing in 14 hours. But Tom. She turned to Dr. Thomas Wright, their materials specialist. Tom looked exhausted. The Zelani ships use whole materials we can't replicate, something they call phase-coherent metamatter. Without it, our ships will be torn apart by the dimensional stresses of FTL travel. Elena stepped forward. What if we don't build new ships? The room fell silent. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Explain. The Zelani sent us complete technical specifications of their evacuation vessels. We know their hull composition, their structural integrity ratings, their passenger capacity. Elena brought up a holographic display of a Zelani ship, sleek, organic-looking, built for efficiency rather than aesthetics. What if we don't rescue them? What if we save their ships? Sarah's eyes widened as she understood. Teleportation. Not moving us to them, but moving them to us. The energy requirements would be even higher, Dr. Chen protested. But the technical requirements would be lower, Tom said, excitement creeping into his voice. We wouldn't need to solve FTL travel, metamatter hull construction, or life support for an alien species. We'd just need to create a space-time tunnel and pull their ships through it. Elena nodded. The Zelani have been sending us updates on their evacuation progress. They have 43 ships loaded with refugees, each containing about 15,000 individuals. Instead of building a rescue fleet, we build a retrieval system. Harrison looked skeptical. And you think this is easier than faster than light travel? I think it's possible within our time frame, Sarah said, her mind already racing through the calculations. We'd need to create a stable wormhole, anchor it to their fleet's coordinates, and maintain it long enough for 43 ships to traverse 16 light-years of space in approximately. She paused, calculating. 7 minutes. 7 minutes to save 2 billion lives, Elena murmured. Marcus pulled up engineering schematics. We'd need every power plant on Earth contributing to the grid. Nuclear, solar, wind, hydroelectric, everything. And we'd need perfect synchronization. If the wormhole collapses while ships are in transit. He didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. The ships would be trapped in folded space-time, their passengers dying in a dimension that didn't technically exist. What about anchor points? Tom asked. We need something at their end to lock onto. Elena smiled sadly. They are going to give us one. The Zelani are planning to use their orbital stations as gravitational anchors to accelerate their evacuation ships. When their sun goes supernova, those stations will be vaporized instantly. But for about 12 minutes before the shockwave hits, they'll be sending out high-energy beacons. 12 minutes, Harrison repeated. To open a wormhole, pull 43 alien ships across 16 light-years and close it safely. 11 minutes and 4 to 7 seconds. Actually, Sarah corrected. We need 13 seconds to safely collapse the wormhole after the last ship comes through. The room fell silent as the magnitude of their task settled in. They were attempting something that would normally require decades of research, unlimited resources, and the kind of international cooperation that typically only emerged during global crises. But then, Elena thought this was exactly that kind of crisis. Not for humanity this time, but for the species that had saved them. I need teams, Sarah said suddenly, moving to the whiteboard. Exotic matter production, wormhole generation, power grid synchronization, ship tracking, and dimensional mathematics. We have 15 hours to rewrite the laws of physics. As the scientists scattered to their respective specializations, Elena remained behind with Director Harrison. Do you really think we can do this? He asked quietly. Elena thought of the Zelani's message, of their simple statement that no species should face extinction without a chance to fight. They had spent their last days giving humanity that chance. We have to, she said, because that's what humans do. We remember who helped us, and we pay our debts. Outside the windows, the first exotic matter production facility was coming online, its alien geometry glowing with energies that had never existed on Earth before today. The moment Dr. Sarah Kim's team achieved stable exotic matter production, alarms began screaming across every major observatory on Earth. The artificial gravitational distortions were wreaking havoc with satellites, disrupting GPS systems, and causing compass needles to spin wildly from California to Kazakhstan. We're literally bending space-time, Sarah reported to the Emergency Command Center that had been established in Geneva. Every physics model we have is breaking down. The exotic matter is more unstable than the Zelani data suggested. Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the command hub, surrounded by screens showing progress reports from around the globe. The solar collection grid was operational, drawing power from every available source on the planet. Rolling blackouts had been implemented in major cities to redirect energy to the wormhole project. For the first time in human history, an entire species had voluntarily dimmed its lights to save another. Dr. Kim, Elena said, her voice carrying across the communication channels to Houston. What's our realistic timeline? 8 hours until we can attempt wormhole generation. But Elena. Sarah's voice carried a note of concern that made everyone in the command center stop talking. The calculations are showing something we didn't expect. The energy requirements aren't linear. Each additional ship exponentially increases the power needed to maintain the wormhole. Director Harrison leaned forward. What does that mean in practical terms? It means we might not be able to save all 43 ships, Sarah said quietly. With current power generation, we could safely retrieve maybe 12 vessels. That's about 180,000 Zelani. The silence in the command center was deafening. Elena closed her eyes, doing the math. 180,000 saved out of 2 billion. It was better than the alternative, better than letting them all die, but it felt like failure. There has to be another way, she said. Actually, came a new voice over the communication system. There might be. The speaker was Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Kyoto Fusion Research Institute. Elena had never heard of her, but Director Harrison was already pulling up her credentials on screen. Plasma physics specialist, expert in magnetic confinement systems, and according to her recent publications, one of the few people on Earth who had been theorizing about controlled stellar manipulation. Dr. Tanaka, Elena said, "What do you have in mind?" "The Zelani sun is going supernova in approximately 7 hours," Yuki explained. "That's an enormous energy release, more power than our entire solar system receives in a millennium. What if we don't fight against that energy? What if we use it?" Sarah's voice crackled through from Houston. "Use a supernova? Yuki, that's beyond theoretical." "That's exactly what we need," Yuki interrupted. "I've been running simulations based on the Zelani stellar data. For about 4 to 7 seconds during the initial supernova blast, there will be a coherent energy wavefront. If we can tap into that, redirect even a fraction of it through our wormhole system." Elena felt her heart racing. "You're talking about harnessing the power of an exploding star." "I'm talking about using the Zelani sun's death to save the Zelani people," Yuki replied. "It's poetic justice on a cosmic scale." Marcus Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation from NASA. "The engineering challenges would be insane. We'd need precision timing down to milliseconds, and any mistake would channel supernova-level energy directly through our wormhole generator, which would vaporize half of Earth," Harrison added grimly. "Oh," Yuki said, "it would give us enough power to open a wormhole large enough for all 43 ships simultaneously, reducing transit time to under 2 minutes and eliminating the exponential power scaling problem." Elena found herself looking at a display showing the Zelani system. According to their latest communication, the evacuation was proceeding ahead of schedule. 43 ships were loaded and ready, containing nearly 650,000 Zelani refugees, the most that vessels could carry. The rest of their population had chosen to remain on their homeworld, facing extinction with dignity. "How long do we have to decide?" Elena asked. 4 hours, Sarah replied from Houston. "That's our point of no return. Either we go with a conservative approach and save a fraction of their people, or we attempt stellar energy siphoning and either save them all or kill everyone trying." Elena thought about the choice the Zelani had made 3 days ago. They could have used their remaining time to focus solely on their own evacuation, maximizing the number of their people who might survive. Instead, they had spent precious hours calculating Earth's asteroid trajectory, encoding warnings, and transmitting technological gifts to a species they had never met. They had chosen to help strangers rather than help themselves. "Dr. Tanaka," Elena said, "what do you need to make this work?" "Every fusion reactor on Earth synchronized to create a magnetic funnel. We'll need to build a stellar energy collector in space, essentially a massive electromagnetic net position at a precise location where the supernova's wavefront will intersect with our wormhole aperture." "That's impossible," Marcus protested. "We'd need to launch and position equipment with tolerances measured in kilometers across a distance of 16 light-years. "No," Yuki said, and Elena could hear the excitement in her voice. "We don't position it there. We position it here and use the wormhole itself as our transmission medium. The same tunnel that brings the ships through will carry the stellar energy back to us. We catch a supernova in a butterfly net and use it to power itself." The complexity was staggering. They would be opening a wormhole, using it to siphon energy from an exploding star 16 light-years away, channeling that energy back through the same wormhole to power itself, and simultaneously using it to transport every Zelani evacuation ship to Earth. If any single component failed, the consequences would be catastrophic on a scale that made the original asteroid threat look trivial. "Vote," Elena said suddenly. "Everyone involved in this project gets a say. Conservative approach, save what we can with minimal risk, or maximum attempt. Try to save them all and risk everything." The responses came in from around the globe. Scientists, engineers, technicians, administrators, thousands of people who had been working without sleep for over 30 hours to repay a debt to strangers. The vote was unanimous. Every single person chose maximum attempt. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. This was humanity at its finest, not the cautious, risk-averse species that others might expect, but the one that looked at impossible odds and impossible gratitude and chose to risk everything for people who had helped them. Dr. Tanaka, she said, you have 4 hours to catch a star. Dr. Kim, prepare for wormhole generation with stellar energy input. Everyone else. She paused, looking around at the faces on the screens, the determined expressions of people about to attempt something that had never been tried in the history of the universe. Everyone else. Let's show the galaxy what human gratitude looks like. 3 hours before the Zelani sun would explode, Earth had become a planet unified by an impossible purpose. Every major city had gone dark except for essential services, their power feeding into the global grid that would fuel humanity's most audacious rescue attempt. In orbit, a hastily constructed stellar energy collector, a geometric mesh of superconductors and exotic matter resonators, waited to catch the death scream of a distant star. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the primary control center, watching status updates flow in from around the world. The Zelani had sent their final communication an hour ago. 43 evacuation ships were in formation, their coordinates locked into Earth's targeting systems. Nearly 650,000 souls waiting in the darkness, unaware that 8 billion humans were about to risk their planet to save them. Exotic matter containment is stable, reported Dr. Sarah Kim from Houston. But, Elena, the quantum fluctuations are increasing. We're dealing with forces that shouldn't exist in normal space-time. Fusion reactors are synchronized, added Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Kyoto. Magnetic funnel deployment in 60 minutes. But I need to warn everyone. When we start siphoning stellar energy, the feedback loop could overload our entire power grid. We'll have maybe 90 seconds to complete the rescue before our own equipment melts. Elena nodded, her attention focused on the astronomical display showing the Zelani system. Their sun was already exhibiting the final signs of impending collapse, surface temperature spikes, gravitational flux, the kind of stellar death throes that could be observed from 16 light-years away. Director Harrison, she said, turning to the man who had somehow convinced every world leader to stake their planet on an act of gratitude, final system checks. All green across the board, Harrison replied, though his voice carried the weight of what they were attempting. But Elena, I need to ask one more time, are we absolutely certain this is worth the risk? If we fail, we don't just lose Zelani, we lose Earth. Elena had been asked this question a dozen times over the past few hours. Each time, her answer had become more certain. Jim, 3 days ago, the Zelani could have spent their final hours with their families, preparing for death with dignity. Instead, they used those hours to save us. They didn't weigh the risks or calculate the benefits. They just acted because it was right. She gestured to the displays showing power consumption across Earth. Look at what we've built in 36 hours. We've rewritten physics, unified every nation, and turned our entire planet into a rescue vehicle. We've done something that should have taken decades because the alternative was unacceptable. Wormhole generation commencing in T-minus 30 minutes, announced the lead technician. Elena watched the countdown, thinking about the chain of events that had brought them to this moment. An unknown species had detected an asteroid headed for Earth. They could have ignored it. After all, they had their own extinction to face. But they had chosen to help strangers instead. Now those strangers were about to attempt something unprecedented in galactic history, using the death of one star to save the children of another. Dr. Vasquez, came a voice from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the Zelani fleet. Elena's heart skipped. They weren't supposed to be in communication range. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was translated by the linguistic algorithms they had developed from the Zelani's original warning. It was calm, dignified, and utterly heartbreaking. People of Earth, this is Fleet Commander's area, the Zelani evacuation fleet. We have become aware of energy signatures emanating from your world that suggest you are attempting some form of rescue operation. We wish to inform you that such an attempt is unnecessary. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Around the control center, technicians stopped their preparations to listen. We gave you the asteroid warning because we believed no species should face extinction without the chance to fight. We did not expect gratitude. We did not expect remembrance. The fact that you survived is reward enough for our final act. The transmission paused, and Elena could hear the background hum of Zelani technology, the quiet efficiency of a doomed species facing their end with grace. We have run calculations based on the energy readings from your planet. What you are attempting has never been tried by any species in known galactic history. The risks to your world are enormous. We who are already dead do not wish to be the cause of your extinction. Please, cease your efforts. Live and flourish. Remember us, if you choose, but do not die for us. The transmission ended, leaving the control center in stunned silence. Elena felt every eye in the room turn to her. This was the moment of ultimate choice. The Zelani themselves were asking humanity to abandon the rescue. They were offering absolution, releasing Earth from any perceived debt. Dr. Vasquez, Director Harrison said quietly, "They've given us permission to walk away." Elena looked around the room at the faces of the men and women who had worked without sleep to build the impossible. She thought of the millions of people around the world who had volunteered their expertise, their resources, their planet's power grid. She thought of the children who would grow up in a universe where humanity had received the ultimate gift and chose to honor it with the ultimate sacrifice. T-minus 15 minutes to wormhole generation, announced the technician. Elena stepped to the primary communication console and opened a channel to the Zelani fleet. Fleet Commander Zeta, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez of Earth. We have received your message and appreciate your concern for our safety. However, I need to inform you of something about human psychology that you may not understand. She paused, choosing her words carefully. When a human receives a gift, especially a gift as precious as life itself, we don't calculate the cost of reciprocation. We don't weigh risk against benefits. We simply ask ourselves one question: what would we want someone to do for us? Elena looked around the control center, seeing nods of agreement from every person present. Commander, if Earth were about to be destroyed and we had evacuation ships ready, what would we want the species we had saved to do? Would we want them to honor our sacrifice by living safely? Or would we want them to honor our sacrifice by proving that no act of kindness, no matter how selfless, goes unrewarded in this universe? The response came quickly. Dr. Vasquez, the risks to your world are acceptable, Elena interrupted, because you made them acceptable when you chose to save us instead of yourselves. T-minus 10 minutes. Commander, please ensure your ships are ready for transit. The moment the Zelani sun began its collapse into supernova, Earth's instruments detected the gravitational waves rippling across space-time. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the stellar death unfold on screens that showed data no human had ever seen before, the precise moment when fusion could no longer sustain a star's fight against its own gravity. Supernova initiation confirmed, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Kyoto. Energy wave front will reach the wormhole aperture in 4 to 7 seconds. All fusion reactors are synchronized and ready for stellar energy capture. Elena's hands trembled as she gripped the command center's railing. Around the world, every major city had gone completely dark. Hospitals were running on backup power. Air traffic had been grounded. Humanity had literally dimmed itself to save another species. Wormhole generation commencing, announced Dr. Sarah Kim from Houston. Exotic matter containment is holding steady. Dimensional fold initiating in 3, 2, 1. The displays erupted with data as space-time itself was torn open 16 light-years away. Elena watched the readings, barely comprehending the forces they were manipulating. The wormhole's mouth had opened precisely at the coordinates where the Zelani evacuation fleet waited, creating a tunnel through folded space that connected 2 distant points in the universe. Contact established with Zelani fleet, called a communications officer. All 4 to 3 ships are responding and ready for transit. Stellar wave front in 20 seconds, Yuki announced, her voice tight with concentration. Magnetic funnel is deployed and locked onto supernova energy signature. Elena, once we start channeling stellar energy through the wormhole, we'll have 90 seconds maximum before our equipment overloads. Elena nodded, her mind focused entirely on the countdown. 43 ships carrying 650,000 Zelani refugees had to traverse 16 light-years of folded space in less than 90 seconds. If the wormhole collapsed early, the ships would be lost in dimensional space. If it collapsed late, the stellar energy would overload Earth's power grid and potentially crack the planet's crust. 15 seconds to stellar impact. Yuki called out. Elena thought about the impossibility of what they were attempting. 3 days ago, humanity hadn't known faster-than-light travel was possible. Now they were using the death of a distant star to power a rescue mission across galactic distances. 10 seconds. She thought about the Zelani, who had spent their final days calculating trajectories for an asteroid that threatened strangers. They had given humanity not just a warning, but the gift of time. Time to prepare, time to fight, time to survive. 5 seconds. Now humanity was returning that gift, multiplied by everything they had learned about what it meant to be grateful. Stellar energy contact in 3, 2, 1. Impact. The displays exploded with readings as the supernova's energy waves struck the wormhole aperture. For a moment, Elena thought every screen in the control center had malfunctioned. The numbers were beyond anything in human experience. Then she realized what she was seeing, the power output of an entire dying star being channeled through their equipment. Incredible, Yuki breathed. We're actually catching stellar energy through folded space-time. Power levels are... Elena, we have more energy available than our entire planet has ever generated in its history. First Zelani ships entering wormhole, reported the tracking station. Transit velocity is... Good God, they're moving at 12 times light speed through the tunnel. Elena watched the tactical display as points of light representing Zelani evacuation ships began their journey through impossible space. Each ship carried about 15,000 refugees, families, children, scientists, artists, the remnant of an entire civilization that had chosen to save strangers with their dying breath. Ships 1 through 10 have cleared the aperture, announced tracking. Transit time, 14 seconds. Ships 11 through 20 entering now. The power readings continued to climb as more stellar energy poured through the wormhole. Elena could see stress indicators flashing red across every system, but everything was holding. Humanity's hastily constructed stellar energy collector was actually working, channeling the death of the Zelani sun into the power needed to save the Zelani people. Ships 21 through 35 are through. Tracking called out. 8 ships remaining. Power grid is holding at 93% capacity. Elena felt sweat beading on her forehead. They were so close. 8 more ships, maybe 120,000 more lives, and they would have accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. Final 8 ships entering wormhole now, tracking announced. Transit time estimates 40 seconds. Elena, Yuki's voice carried a note of concern. Power levels are approaching critical. The stellar energy is more intense than our model predicted. We're going to have to collapse the wormhole the moment the last ship clears, or we risk catastrophic overload. Elena nodded, watching the countdown displays. 35 seconds until the final ship cleared the wormhole. Power grid stress at 97% and climbing. The exotic matter containment systems were beginning to fluctuate under the enormous energy loads. 20 seconds. Tracking called out. The control center filled with the sound of alarms as safety systems reached their limits. Elena could see technicians around the world frantically adjusting parameters, fighting to keep the stellar energy collector stable for just a few more moments. 10 seconds. Final ship is almost through. Elena held her breath. So close. After everything they had risked, everything they had built, they were seconds away from proving that human gratitude could indeed shake worlds. Final ship has cleared the wormhole, tracking announced. All 43 Zelani vessels are now in Earth space. Collapsing wormhole immediately, Sarah called out from Houston. Exotic matter containment is failing. We need to shut down now. Elena watched the displays as the impossible tunnel through space-time collapsed safely, severing connection to the dying Zelani system. The stellar energy readings dropped to 0. Power grids around the world began restoring normal operations. And on the tactical display, 43 alien ships hung in space near Earth, carrying the survivors of a species that had saved humanity. The control center exploded in cheers, but Elena found herself crying. They had actually done it. In less than 4 days, humanity had gone from receiving a warning about an extinction-level asteroid to successfully rescuing 650,000 members of a species that had saved them. Dr. Vasquez, came a familiar voice through the communication system. This is Fleet Commander Zelani. We have no words for what you have accomplished. You have rewritten the laws of physics to honor a debt that existed only in your hearts. Elena wiped her tears and stepped to the communication console. "Commander, welcome to Earth. We have much to discuss about resettlement, but first I need to tell you something important." She paused, looking around at the faces of the people who had made the impossible possible. "You saved us when you had every reason to focus only on yourselves. You gave us a gift we could never have earned and never expected. But you need to understand something about humans. Commander, we don't forget those who help us, ever, and our gratitude." She smiled, thinking of the wormhole that had just collapsed, the stellar energy they had just harnessed, the impossibility they had just achieved. Our gratitude can indeed shake worlds. Outside, as Earth's cities began turning their lights back on, 43 alien ships settled into orbit around the planet whose inhabitants had just proven that some debts are worth risking everything to repay.